really embrace this, that's what recovery is all about. Now, the difference is that psychologically you had some resistance to it because you have to give up some things, but so many addicts have a hard time identifying themselves because for them it means something really negative.
Well, I think the hardest thing most alcoholics and most addicts ever have, I always say you have to recover from the life. Because if you don't recover from the life, there's a good chance you won't stay sober. And it's like we're both from, me and Brian are both from like certain areas where it's like, it's hard where, that your friends are everything. Right. And it's like, who are you if you're not that?
Right.
Who are you if you're not the guy? Yeah. It's like if, I have a friend that he has a hard time because he's the guy that always has to pay the bill. Right. He's that guy. He's the guy that has to go to the Four Seasons every night. And if he's not that, then who is he?
Right, right.
And it was, sorry.
Well, we where I grew up, I'm from West Roxbury, which is a suburb within Boston proper, and we had generations and generations and generations of kids from my neighborhood, like literally generations. So where we were on the corner, our older brothers were in the schoolyard, and then the other older brothers were in the bar room, and it was just a generation. And every you were a hockey player or you played baseball, football, and your friends were everything. You went out with your friend, you hung in the corner with your friends till it was time to go home, and then when you graduated to the schoolyard, you were in the schoolyard till it was time to go home, and then the girlfriends were all part of it, and so that's your identity. And then next thing you know, myself, to speak for myself, I'm drinking and drugging, and I'm a mess, and I'm blacking out, and I'm now, my friends are kind of getting upset with me over stuff, but I'm trying to quit on my own, and that's not working, and then now I got to go away, and then it's, well, now all my friends are talking about me because I'm going away for 4 weeks. Like,
right.
Oh, Brian just disappeared. Like, what happened? Like, where'd he go? And where I grew up, there was no such thing as a teenage alcoholic or addict. It was
right.
Just, so it's like, now I was terrified. I didn't see anything past that.
How scared were you? How scared were you when you came back?
I was saying, when I got out of detox, I was terrified.
I was in rehab in Israel, and I was living in Israel. I got sent to rehab, and I was in the middle,
dangerous.
and I was in the middle of school, and I remember I had to go back to the rehab. I had to go back to school after rehab, and I remember going there, sitting there.
Just coming back from Israel and going back to school is difficult.
That's very true too. But I was sitting in this rehab. I was sitting in school in Israel, and I was thinking to myself, I don't belong here. Like, I called my drug counselor up from the rehab, and I said, "Can you come and get me? I need to stay there longer," because I didn't know. I was 18 years old. Who was I? And I was terrified.
Right.
I was just, because what do you do?
Especially at that young age, when your whole identity is your friends, and your whole identity is this thing that's culturally and through generations, like it's been passed down and it's.
So how did you break that cycle, Brian? Obviously you did.
It was interesting. I actually went into a halfway house in South Boston, which where I knew some kids from high school or whatever, and I played hockey with. But I pulled myself out of my neighborhood where I drank and hung around, and I moved into another neighborhood in Boston, and then I just began to go to meetings and get involved in that area, and I literally had to physically take myself out of where I was away from, because the corner I hung around was right across the street from my house, so I had to literally just pull myself out and go to another suburb. But it all wasn't as bad as it was, but I had to geographically take myself out of that, and then it was kind of like, oh, okay, cool. And then I just got a job working on the fish pier in South Boston, and working on the piers, and I worked there in high school. So, and I met this whole new group of kids that didn't drink, but all great kids, a lot of them athletes, whatever, and then next thing you know, it just time kind of went on, and.
I always find, like, people are drinking a lot, and when they're in the height of their addiction, they just can't believe that everybody else isn't drinking and using.
Right.
It's like, you're like, oh, everybody's got to be using this many drugs and
well,
drinking.
my friends were taking bets on when I was going to drink again. Like, there was actually literally action they were taking on when Scannell going to drink again.
You see, I think the discussion now is just so important, because see what happens with addiction, it actually weaves itself in to our identity. So that this is who we think we are. Like both of you are talking about it here right now, Judy, you and Brian. where you're talking about that you totally identified yourself as that person. And to think of changing that or losing that was like somebody ripping away your identity.
Yeah.
And see, and that's the great thing about that. I know you see this, Andrew, and I see this in recovery. You start to see these other parts of yourself that you didn't know existed before.
And it wasn't right away. It was,
it takes a while.
It's like
This
the first few
process-
years.
See, that's what you said. Don't give up before the miracle.
Right. The first few years
Right.
for people that stay sober, it's the reverse happens then. You know how drinking was your identity. The 12 steps become your identity until you learn how to just integrate it into your life.
Yeah.
Where it's no longer I'm Judah, it's
Right.
I'm sober. I'm just a sober member of society that's trying to.
Well, another difficult piece of it was when I went out, and I'm 19 years old. I'm in recovery, and there weren't a lot of people in my neighborhood, anyways. But when I would still go out and see some of my old friends, and or if I went out and I was in a club and I still had a fake ID, and I would get into the clubs, and the girls would say, "Well, what are you drinking?" And I'd say, "Well, I don't drink." And then, but there were some girls that would think that, wow, that's really cool. You don't drink it, like you're so young. But then there were other girls where,
what's
people,
wrong?
what do you mean you don't drink? How come that's weird?
They were the
It's
ones that wanted to
devastating.
drink.
That happened to me. When I was in rehab. When I got back to school, I remember going to this bar and I wasn't drinking, and I had a crush on this girl. And I remember my drug counselor used to say to me, he used to go, "What do you think a girl would rather have after 11 o'clock at night? A drunken, not nice person," he didn't say it like that, "or a sober, nice guy?" And I believed him, and I said, "Oh, it must be a sober, nice guy." And I finally work up the courage to say to this girl at this bar in Israel, "I have a crush on you." And she goes, "Judah, you're a really good guy, but
You don't party.
you don't party."
Yeah.
Right.
And I was like, ugh. Like everything that this guy had told me in that instant was a lie.
Right.
And I didn't believe I could, it's...
Well, that's too bad because often it's like people come to me and they say, I don't want to drink, but I want to go to this party, and there's so many practical, simple skills you can teach somebody, like show up with a beverage already in your hand. If you walk in with a soda in your hand, nobody's going to ask you to, what you want to drink. You're like, "Oh, I already got my drink," It's just things like that, and there's things that you can learn so that you don't get in these situations where you're triggered or peer pressure.
Feeling the pressure that
Yeah.
you've got to do what everybody else is doing.
It
That's
didn't
a
help that
great-
she was
that's
a
great
waitress at the
point.
bar.
I used to
Huge
carry
problem.
a little cooler in my car filled with I was drinking Mountain Dew. And
Yep.
that's what I always had, a 6-pack of Mountain Dew in my cooler when I went out at night in the car, just in case, where if I was going to a party, and then I always had one in my hands.
Yep.
And
And it just took that away.
It just
Takes
took it all
takes that
away.
element out.
Exactly. That was a great.
Yeah.
That's a great
One
point.
of the things I've been working with people, I've developed this dialogue that people go through, and it's very interesting to watch them go through this at different stages of the recovery. So what I have them do is identify their addicted self, their alcoholic self, their addicted self, and they can be that person and talk from that position inside of them very well.
Right.
If they're just starting recovery, I'll have them be their healthy self, or they're part of them that wants to get well, right? The recovery self. And then I'll put them to have two chairs, right, where they're facing each other. And I'll have them go back and forth between this. So what do you think happens early on? Well, the recovery self says to the addict, "Get out of here. I want you out of my life. Quit destroying my life. You're ruining my life. You made my wife go away, or you made me lose this job, or whatever it is." And that's almost 99% of the time. The first strategy to deal with addiction is to do what? Try to get rid of it.
Yeah.
But does that work? Of course not, right? We got to embrace that.
Perfect. I always say that to people. It's like you got to learn how to embrace your quirks.
You do. And you got to
You
learn to
know.
embrace your addiction.
Yeah.
And that's what you did with dealing with your allergic
quarter to
your-
carry.
Yeah,
Quarter
I
to
can't even
carry.
pronounce
We'll
it.
probably get more calls on
On that,
quarter
yeah,
to
no,
carry.
I think I have that. Where do
And
we
the
go to
number
get out?
here is 877-830-830. That's 877-830-830. We could talk about quarter to carry. Is that how you
Cold or to carry.
cold or to okay?
Yeah.
We could talk about
Spell
your
that.
mutant thing that you have going on there,
My mutant thing.
and your 12-step support group that you're actually going to start up for it.
One of the things that I actually like what Alan was talking about is concepts of narrative, and not to get too highfalutin here, but the idea that you can actually create a narrative for yourself and that you can live it out, and that all of us are always, and to some level, and there's a whole realm of therapy that just deals with narrative therapy, which is very analytically based, more than sort of cognitive and behaviorally based, like a lot of the newer therapies. But I like the idea that, you know, that all of us sort of have a story running in our head about who and what we are, and who and what we're going to do. And people need to sort of know that they can shape that, they can change that narrative. And there's normally critical points in people's lives where there's like key moments they can point to where they can say, oh, my chapter changed here, and then it went to, you know, another chapter. We'll be speaking some more about this and other topics.
Have comedian.
Yeah, we have a great comedian, David Forseth, coming in. Got him.
You're horrible with
I'm
words.
Just right. And please give us some calls. It's 877-830-830. KLEAN Radio.
I just love that song. It's for the block boy. Yeah. Welcome back to KLEAN Radio. You're here with, we have a great in-studio guest with us tonight. But I just wanted to tell the story. And why the importance of the show to me and the importance of our guests is last week I got invited out, and I was with Tony Dennison, and I got invited out to this great party called the Night of 100 Stars. And we were sitting at this table, and this actress was sitting next to me, and she started sharing that, you know, that she's in a different program, that she's in Al-Anon. And we were talking quiet, and I had said accidentally out loud, oh, how long, you know, or whatever. I got really excited. And she's like, shh, 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 you know, and like Tony overhears this, and he goes, how long do you have? And then she's like, shh, 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 you know, like, you know, for anonymity purposes, you know, and like, and I realized it's for a second, I had this like really fun moment of like, you know, sitting next to somebody where I could identify with them, and I was like, and a lot of us like that, you know. It's like, so we have a stand-up comic in tonight, you know, that's sober. We have an actor in here that's sober, and it's one of those things. It's cool. Like a lot of us are like, oh, he's in the program, and it really is a very important thing, you know. And I break my anonymity. I have no problem with breaking my anonymity. I don't break other people's anonymity. But if you're willing,
except for just a few seconds ago.
Well, I didn't
breaking mine just then.
I did break, right? I broke everybody in here's anonymity.
I broke mine. I already had a friend text me on his way in the car. He said, "Happy 23 years."
But it's so important. You know, it's funny as we're seeing, like, you know, with certain celebrities in the news on the other side. It is such a powerful message. You know, it's like when you're sitting at home going, oh, he's sober, you know, and it really is a cool thing. So with that, we welcome a sober comic. And I mean, it's sort of fun going to, you know, as a fan of you. I will be a fan of you now. I know Andrew's a fan of you, and to say, hey, he's in the program. You know, I'm gonna go hear this guy perform. You know, and it is a camaraderie thing.
Well, we have David Forseth tonight.
After my whole long, boring story.
Yeah.
David, actually, every O'Brien's in Venice, right?
Santa Monica, yeah.
Santa
Sunday,
Monica?
yeah, we're there, yeah. Every Sunday
Where is
night.
the line between Venice and Santa Monica?
Right where O'Brien's is, actually.
Right. You have a great comedy show there.
Yeah, every Sunday.
I always
Great
have fun. My wife plays there often.
Amy Dresner, yeah, great comedian. Yeah, she's always there.
And tomorrow night, you're at the University of Irvine.
That's correct, yeah. At the Ant Hill Pub, we'll be there telling some jokes.
That's exciting.
Also a free show. If you guys want to change your lives, come on down.
Yeah.
Live it like you love it, you know?
I love comedy.
Well, that's the hardest thing, though, is like when you're sober, you know, and you go to the comedy clubs, you know, you always have to order 2 drinks.
Yeah, well, you get used to a lot of Diet Coke.
A lot of Diet Coke, right.
And if you want to get edgy, put some lemon in there, you know, and get zesty. It's crazy talk.
And the Red Bulls are always a little more.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, comedy, I never drank before I went up. You know, I think that, you know, there's always been a thing about having just, it's kind of a spiritual quest when you're an artist. I think you want to have the clarity there. But going to parties is certainly different, you know, because people don't trust you. Women do not trust a guy who doesn't drink, you know, because you're that guy. You know what I mean? You know,
What's the reason?
You're going to be in a hot tub with the donkey
You can't
show
tie
going on.
knots if you're drunk.
Yeah, I was at a birthday party and this girl walked up and I was just down by myself, you know, like you guys said, you know, having a beverage, like
Right.
you walk in with a Diet Coke or something, and I was just down there by myself as you're cutting the birthday cake, and she goes, Diet Coke, you're that guy. Right? And I was like, that guy? What, the guy's not going to have none of these and have sex in the bathroom? No, I'm not taking tits, put some clothes on, you know. But, you know.
Can you say that on the radio?
Yeah. But it's they view you as like a different, but I mean, it's like, I think it is a camaraderie, because when people are sober, or You know, it's a different walk. It's having absolute clarity and accountability all the time. It is a different walk with a different purpose, you know. Like, there's no excuse. You can't be like, oh, sorry last night, guys, I was a little banged up, you know, pardon me. You know, no, it's just, no, that was me at the age of 38 giving wet willies and snapping broads. That's all me, guys. So I don't need to get drunk to be an ass. That's just me. God bless. You know, that's it's different.